Now, one of the most interesting things about working at a supermarket is the type of clientele that you see throughout the day. In the very beginning hours, you see a lot of truckers the first 10 minutes, them waiting for the doors to open to buy a sandwich, walk out the door, and keep on rolling down the highway. At about 8 to 9 in the morning, you see a lot of early birds, people who just want to buy their groceries as fast as possible and get on with their day. Well, what's particularly interesting is the next group who comes in about 11 to about 2. It appears to be most of these customers are young women starting a very young family with young children in the cart, or middle-aged women who are chatting up a storm with other shoppers they know in the world. They ultimately seem in no hurry and no rush, very laid back and relaxed. They're just cruising down the aisles, grabbing whatever they need, and not really worrying about the time they're taking. They're almost always alone. Sometimes two of them shop together. Sometimes it's two middle-aged women. Sometimes it's one and a later-aged woman that appears to be her mother. Regardless, though, the very important thing about these women is that they seem to be relaxed. They're not worried, and largely just appear to be genuinely happy. They're happy rolling through the store. They're happy to strike up a conversation with somebody they know. They're happy to take their time. Now, the biggest thing that's very obvious, and we don't need to infer too much about these customers like we just did with some of those points, is that these women are not working. They are not working at all from about 8 to 5, Monday to Friday. And they maintain various luxuries that you would usually see in the suburbs. Well-dressed, usually some jewelry, and a nice new car, usually a crossover or some sort of SUV. So the very obvious answer is these women are married, and they're married to men clearly making a fairly decent amount of money in order to afford these luxuries. Now this is of course in contrast to the next group of people that seem to come in starting about 3, because apparently all businesses end their workday around 3 in this town. It's some weird phenomenon. But starting around 3 to about 5 or 6, there's another group of distinct female shoppers that seem to come in the store. For starters, they seem tired or low energy, just like they were at a 8-hour day at work. They also don't seem very happy. Maybe they're not unhappy or mad, but they definitely aren't having a giant jolly smile on their face. They also seem to be trying to get about their business quickly. They don't try to strike up conversations with other people. If they do, however, end up in a situation, they end it very briefly. Hello, how are you? Oh, you're doing good? That's great. Thank you. Rather than a 10 or 20 minute conversation in the grocery store. They also appear to buy a lot of convenience food. Fruit roll-ups, granola bars, that type of stuff. And rarely ever go down the baking aisle and grab some sort of baking goods for baking cookies or flour or sugar or any type of baking product. They also seem to ask where things are more often than our previous group of shoppers. They consistently want to know where things are fast so they can find them and get out of the store. Or so it seems. Sometimes they're even in uniform and you clearly know they're obviously a working woman. Some of them I just recognize from other establishments that they clearly are 8 to 5 workers. But okay, you might be thinking, okay, what does this have anything to do with anything? You're making a case that there's 2 different groups of shoppers. Big whoop. Well, that's the thing. It appears that the previous group of shoppers, the 11 to 2s, just seem to be enjoying life. They seem to be happy. They don't have any worries. They have lots of time to get their things done in the day that they need to get done. They're very carefree. They feel free. They have freedom in their day. They are free to get things done when they feel necessary. Whereas the other women, the women that work 8 to 5, or so it seems, are not free. They must quickly buy all the groceries that they need for the day after work. Then they need to get all the lunches prepared, get supper prepared for their kids. And hopefully, just maybe, if they're quick enough and all their routines are done through the day, they'll be able to sit down, watch some TV, or maybe run a bath for about an hour before they go to bed early for work the next day. See, this is the problem with the feminist narrative. They seem to say that women working is empowering. It's freedom. How is waking up at 6, getting ready, showering, get all your hair done, get some business casual clothes on, rush into work for 8 hours, where they, in all honesty, complain a lot. They do. Female coworkers have complained way more often than male coworkers, at least in my experience, and maybe that's a topic for another day. They get off work and they're rushing through the town for about an hour because of the traffic. If they have to go to the grocery store that particular day, they quickly buy their groceries and hopefully get out. They must get the kids' lunches and all the things on their list. They go home, they cook supper, they clean supper. Maybe they have a dishwasher or kids that help. That seems to be a very common thing, is kids definitely help these days, male or female. And there's nothing wrong with that, as far as I would say. They pack lunches, they hopefully run a bath, and try to enjoy their last hour before they go to bed at 9, 10 at the latest. Well, where in that situation did you see any freedom? Where? Tell me. Where were they free to do anything that they wanted in that 24 hours? That one last hour at the end of the day? That's really interesting. Because they had to do all those things. They were socially obligated / morally obligated to do the rest of those things. And all that time where they could be doing things that they actually wanted to do, they were stuck at work for 9 hours. Because, there's that hour lunch. You're going to have that hour lunch anyways, but usually it's in a shitty coffee shop, buying some cruddy food, not relaxed, and with coworkers half the time that maybe you hate, maybe you don't. But regardless, it's not you time, let's face it. But this is feminism. Feminism did this for women. They got them the right to work. No, seriously, that's great. That is great. It's no joke. Whatever, women have the right to choose. That's great. Socially acceptable for women to choose whatever they want in life. They're not going to be frowned upon if they're going into the office. But see, the pitfall with this history is now the feminists get to turn around and say, well, we gave you the right to vote. What are you going to do? Just it's a slap in the face to feminism and everything all these women did for you if you don't work. It's almost this combination of guilt-tripping in women to work / conditioning them and telling them it's fun and liberating. It's the way of the 21st century woman. Even in school, those English language arts stories. Suddenly you get into the topic about women and their rights as people and stuff like that, and you talk about how culturally that women and men should be equal. You never hear a story about how women are happy cooking and baking. It's always a shitty story where the father was an abusive asshole and he's beating the shit out of her and tell her to go make a sandwich. Or it's a story where I think I would like to drive a car. There's never a story about a woman who stayed at home, was a mom her whole life, and just enjoyed life. There's never that story. I mean, my grandparents were that. Your grandparents probably were that as well. They seemed very happy. The only time I ever saw my grandmother sad was when my grandfather passed away. But that's too ordinary. That's not interesting enough. What's really interesting is women's liberation. That's incredibly interesting. And I wouldn't deny that, yeah, it's worthy of being in a curriculum. But it honestly seems like our culture has taken a 180 when it comes to this issue. Women are almost being pressured into work. It's an anomaly if you are not a working woman. I mean, my own mother had to justify raising 3 children and not working the majority of those 20 years. Raising us boys was her career. You know how sick and perverse that is? She had to justify raising children as a career. I feel like more so to herself than anybody else. This seems to be this brainwashing and pressure of this weird new culture that seems to just want to replace what has worked, what has made our civilization great, by guilt-tripping women away from raising families into this environment where they don't even enjoy it. And hold your comment, because yes, of course, maybe your aunt just wanted to work her whole life and she was happy as hell doing it. There's this thing called anomalies. There's this thing called anecdotal evidence. But I'm taking a giant sample of people who are coming into a supermarket. I can clearly see a different atmosphere among the customers at certain times of the day when you know there's people who have different lifestyles. And maybe that's triggering for you, or you're literally shaking at your keyboard or your computer. So what? Sometimes the truth fucking hurts. And men just don't tell the truth to women anymore. We all know how that fucking works. Believe me, it's something you just don't bring up when you're actually on a date with somebody. You don't bring up that women are happier in the home and men are happier at work. You just don't bring that up. Like, ever. It's a great way to get fired. It's a great way to get written up for bigotry or harassment. It's a great way to get shunned at a dinner party. It's a great way to get a lot of people pissed off because, that's just not a nice thing to say, right? Meanwhile, the whole media and your school and your teachers and your curriculum, all your peers, even your parents who have raised this new millennial generation, they're all on board with this weird idea that women should work. Not that they have the right to choose, that they should work. But see, I hold the principle that people should have the right to choose. They should have the right to choose what's bad for them, what's good for them. But most of all, they should have the right to choose without pressure. People should not be pressuring you into making your choices. Those people are assholes. And I also hold the belief that the best choices are made by the most educated and informed people. At the end of the day, you can feel what you want. You can make whatever choice you want. I'm not telling you to do anything because I'm an idiot. I can't make you do anything. You are free to choose what you want to do. I'm not the fool trying to tell you buy this brand over that brand. I'm just the guy that's saying, hey, this brand has more of what you want, and that brand doesn't. Either way, whichever product you choose is your choice. All I'm saying is the other side is trying to be a salesman to you and pitch it that you want something I don't think you want. And I think that's all I gotta say here. If that's really triggering, then write a comment and tell me how I'm wrong, and, well, don't kill yourself when you receive a response that you just don't like. Thank you, and have a good day.